Hello everybody, Daily Dub, another edition of Meet the Dubs. I'm here in the vehicle with Kimberly, my older sister. We are about to have lunch, and we thought this would be a good opportunity to talk to you. So Kim and I have a relationship different than you've heard from Mom and Dad and Victoria, in that because of our age similarities and kind of probably the way our life was when we were younger, before Victoria was even born, we have some shared experiences that are different. Because as the 80s were progressing and we were watching different things, Victoria was a baby even, and so she wouldn't have that shared experience with us. So while she has experiences with Power Rangers and things that we were both then older not doing, Kim and I have a lot of G.I. Joe and She-Ra and He-Man and shared stuff, so we have a very similar thing. So the first question, Kim, is, well, first let's talk about your collection, because you're a lady. And I know a lot of the viewers, we talked about this with Victoria too, there are a lot more lady collectors than maybe are out there. And for various reasons haven't felt comfortable with sharing collections. And we're trying to do better about that, on at least on my channel, being positive and let everybody share how they want to share. And so how do you like to collect? And do you, you know, being a female collector, does that, has it got better for you? Is it hard for you? Is there challenges, you know, going to comic book stores, things like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't actually get into comics until really in the last 5 or 6 years, because when I was younger, when I was a teenager, the only comic book store I really knew in our town was like the combination used bookstore,
yeah, book
comic
exchange
store, and like Magic the Gathering Warhammer figurine place.
Yep.
And every time I went in there, like, it was covered with, you know, posters of busty ladies wearing very little, and like, you know, pinups,
underpants,
and and it just it sends the message, this is not yours, this isn't for you,
right?
So I just never, I just assumed that comics was just not my thing.
Right.
It wasn't meant for me, so I never really got into it. I had read some of the like really notable graphic novels, like I'd read Watchmen, I had read Sandman. I was actually really into Phonogram, which my husband got me into because he's a big fan of...
It's like the music one, right?
Yeah, it's the one where music is a form of magic. So you have...
That's right, yeah.
The magic cast by the music. It was actually a really cool book done by Kyron Gillen and Jamie McKelvey, who have done a lot of other really cool work, both independently and for
Gillen,
Marvel.
most notable for...
Journey into Mystery, Young Avengers.
A lot.
McKelvey designed the Captain Marvel costume, the new one. He's done a lot of really good art. They did Young Avengers together. They did Phonogram together. They're currently doing The Wicked and the Divine together.
Wicked Divine, that's, yeah.
So they're a creative team with a lot going on. But I had never really gotten into any of the major superhero comics. I liked Wonder Woman from when I was little, when I saw her shows. Yeah, we talked about
watching Linda Carter, Wonder Woman together, and the little twirly.
So I knew her, and I was really into Star Wars in high school.
Yeah,
because you
all
remember
those books,
all those books,
Timothy Zahn,
the Zahn books,
Kevin J. Anderson, is that the name?
Yeah, the Young Jedi Apprentice series about the twins, Han and Leia's kids.
Many books.
We had Tales from Jabba's Palace, those were really
Tales
good.
from the Mos Eisley Cantina.
Yeah. Those were some of my favorites because it was so fun to just look at those characters that you knew nothing about, but just a scene.
And we talked about this with Victoria. You know, I've shared that, you know, if I had gun to the head, the only fandom I would pick, or if I could pick one work, it would be The Hobbit. And I think that is most because you reading it to me, and then growing in the TV the cartoon. And Victoria said the same thing, that her biggest thing is Harry Potter, and her first exposure was you reading Harry Potter to her, because she thought it was not cool. It was for little babies.
For little kids.
And we've talked about how you're a much more intelligent person than Victoria and I, and you are a consumer of books more than probably anything.
Yeah,
I'm sure still to this day you still read quite a bit.
I do.
And so a lot of works you were reading, Narnia and Tolkien, and we talked about the Star Wars books. Did you read Star Trek novels at all?
I was into Star Trek. I watched it when I was in middle school in reruns after school, the original Star Trek.
Right.
So I was actually really into that, but I didn't have tie-in novels at the time. I read a lot of Star Wars tie-in novels. I used to read to you guys. I think I liked it so much, and you wouldn't read it yourself, so I would just read it to you.
Well, it's the same premise as we get somebody to, we watch the first episode of a show with somebody on Netflix now or whatever that we want them to watch, which is a thing that happens all the time. Oh, you've never seen Breaking Bad? Let's watch the first episode.
Yeah.
You know, whatever the case may be.
This is the good part.
So,
I got in trouble one time. Do you remember that? I read you Matilda by Roald Dahl and it gave you nightmares and Mom got mad at me.
No.
Because you were scared by, like, I guess.
Was this before or after I'd run around the backyard naked for fun?
I think it was after, because you were like 3 when you used to do that. You were a toddler. Yeah, the next door neighbor would call Mom. She's like, he's out back again.
Yeah, well, I mean, it still could happen from time to time.
Little kids do that. They don't like clothes.
Big kids do.
Yeah, so when I collect things, like, usually it's because I have a real connection to the characters. For me, the plot lines are actually really secondary a lot of the time to the characters and the relationships and the way that I can relate to the characters or they make me feel something, like they resonate with me. So, you know, because with comics, you know, the canon changes so often and gets rebooted. And so I'm actually okay with that for the most part. Like if people are like, oh, they ruined such and such that you like, I'm like, well, then I just won't accept that part.
Yeah,
I'll read something else.
It's different. I was thinking about this recently because somebody asked me to talk about my favorite TV shows. And as you know, exponentially a bigger fan of serialized TV versus whatever the other term is for the ongoing... Yeah. Whatever it is, like NCIS.
More like anthologies.
Yeah, but when you think about it, comics are NCIS. They are not Breaking Bad.
Oh yeah, because
they're just ever always going to go, and even if Agent Gibbs gets kidnapped for a season because of a contract dispute, they're going to bring him back as evil Agent Gibbs or different costume Agent Gibbs.
Mirror Universe Agent Gibbs with a goatee.
It's the same thing, and so in comics, it's much more. Like with Walking Dead and the TV show, I think I just want to be in that world. Yeah, it's not you become attached to the characters and not their story arcs as necessarily. You have your favorite arcs, right? But it's the character themselves, right? And not the plot as much because writers change in some cases multiple times a year.
Really good. Some of them are kind of eh. Some of them you feel like they don't get the character as well as I do.
Yeah, and then you see with comic readers, it's when you get frustrated with an author. Where I mean, so like I like The Flash, I like Barry Allen. Right. And if somebody wrote him not kind of goofy and innocent, or the same thing with Spider-Man. Spider-Man's a character everybody knows. If all of a sudden Spider-Man was like dark and menacing like Batman.
Grim, dark Spider-Man, no.
You would be like, this is not why I read Spider-Man. Right. I will read Batman if I want that.
Right, exactly. Because that's not why I come here.
Right.
You know.
So you're collecting, what are your favorite, what's your favorite, well, first of all, what types of things do you collect? I know it's a lot. Yeah. And then what are your favorite people?
I have pretty eclectic collecting tastes, although I've shifted lately to try to do fewer bigger things as opposed to tons of little things just because I have a smaller house than you do and not a lot of display space. I'm actually really...
Make good use of it. We're going to do a collection video for Kim at some point here in the coming months, once everything, she's done a lot of remodel at the house, so once everything is set up and ready.
Away and I find it all again.
Yeah, we'll show you. Yeah. You've seen a little bit of it when I'm at her house here and there.
One of the things I like to do with my collection is integrate it with my home decor. Right. Instead of having more of a kind of museum-y model like you tend to do, I tend to kind of scatter my pieces, you know, on the mantelpiece, on a shelf, in front of the books, kind of throughout. Yep. So that kind of everywhere I look, I'm seeing something I like in it.
Yeah, like on her mantle, there might be, you know, pictures of her parents and a wedding picture, and then Peggy Carter statue, and then like some Roman Colosseum thing.
I've got like Atlas and Peabody climbing up a family picture, you know, stuff like that. It just is amusing to me. You know, the Sandman hovering behind, you know, your graduation picture or whatever. Yep, yep. So I do it that way. I collect, I have a fair number of Marvel Legends. I mostly limit Marvel Legends to the women characters that I really like. I tend to collect the ladies. And then characters that I really like, or if the figure is just too cool. Yep. Sometimes I have some where just the figure was too cool to pass up. Yep. So, and the other... Or if it's one of my, like I have a couple people who, like I'll always buy it if the figure's good. Yeah. You know, which I'll talk about in a minute. Yeah. So like Hawkeye and Black Widow are two of those for me. I will always buy a Hawkeye or Black Widow if the figure's good. Phil Coulson, I will buy. I think I actually do own every piece of Phil Coulson merch except
we were
one.
on a quest at some point last year to look up everything that had ever been made of Phil Coulson. And we found some random obscure thing you got, you know.
One thing that I don't have that I know of is, well, there's two things. One of them is the Hero Clicks, because I don't do Hero Clicks. And I didn't want to bother for the little, like, 2-inch high thing or whatever it is. Yep. The other one is, you know those weird vinyl Mickey Mouse shaped things with, like, a face painted on them of a character?
I think so.
Yeah, they sell them at, like, the Disney store. I forget what they're called, Vinylmations or something.
Yeah.
There's a Coulson and Fury set, I think, of those that I never got, because I don't really want a Mickey Mouse shaped Coulson face. Like, it was just weird. I didn't really like it. But I have the Hot Toy, and I have the Legend, and I have the Pop and the Pop that comes in his car, and I think there's...
Now, it looks like a figure art is coming at some point soon.
Oh, I would be so happy.
They've shown one. They haven't said it, but they've shown
Well, he's in Captain Marvel, so I'm hoping he'll have them. Yeah. So I like them, and sort of the fan theory that Hawkeye, Black Widow, and Coulson were kind of a strike team inside of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right. Because
of the way they're portrayed in the Avengers, where Coulson reaches out to Natasha about Hawkeye, and he seems to be talking like the three of them have a friendship.
Yeah, they make
separately.
They make it pretty clear that there's something.
Yeah, like they're close. They know each other. They've worked together, and so I kind of like that idea. And so I have a lot of stuff. When I do commissions, a lot of times that's who I commission.
You have a lot of cool commissions.
I have a lot of cool commissions I've gotten at Con.
Including a Winnie the Pooh commission. You've seen my Pooh stuff. She has a Pooh commission.
It's really cute because the Black Widow is Kanga and Hawkeye is Brew in her pouch with those little arrows. And Coulson's Christopher Robin.
Dan Doherty is the artist
so when we see my collection, you'll see that. And then Wonder Woman's another that I do a lot of, although I don't buy everything of her because there's so much, and a lot of them are really similar. So I try to find like distinct ones or ones that are especially good. And Captain Marvel is another big favorite, which I'm so excited about the movie.
The movie. As you're watching this, we're probably right around the movie date as you're watching this, so we're excited for that. There is so Mass Effect is also a big fandom for video games.
Mass Effect.
And I know, because I don't know how many people watch this, but somebody may have it that could put it up for sale or trade it or something. Isn't there one specific piece you're missing for Mass Effect?
So there is a Player's Kai female Commander Shepard.
Play-Arts Kai female Commander
I have the male Commander Shepard, and I have the Garrus, and I have the Play-Arts Kai.
You have and you're the male Commander Shepard with the horrible face, but Iron Geek 37 Kevin has actually finished that custom and should be sending it this week, so you should have it soon.
Because now I'll have him with a good face, because his armor is good, the sculpt is good, and the paint on the
I actually, when I opened it to look at it, the armor and weapons are good.
The weapons look great. I don't know what happened with the faces, but it's like bad. That particular figure is real bad.
If you have that female Commander Shepard Play-Arts Kai or know where it is, send me a message, because it's not... we've hardly seen it.
The only one I've seen go up for sale was someone that somebody had actually customed a different face to.
Yeah.
Was selling on
so it's not even that it is so expensive it's impossible to get. It's like it's not, nobody sells it. It's not for sale.
Generally, any of the female Commander Shepard stuff is really hard to find these days, because they didn't make as much as they did the male Commander Shepard.
Yep.
And although I do have a really cool Pop custom female Commander Shepard that I got done.
We'll show you that.
That is, they took the body off of the N7 variant female rider and did a FemShep head paint for me. It was very cool. So I actually have a fair amount of Pops. I used to have a lot more, and I sold a lot of them because I just didn't have the space to display them all. Yep. So I now have a limit. I have them on my Pop shelves, and if I get new ones, I have to take old ones and
a lot of us struggle with keeping room in our collection, me included. Everybody does, and so Kim made a decision to kind of say, "Here's my shelf space for it."
Yeah.
And if I've got the shelf stay full, and if I want a new thing, that means I have to replace something. And take it and sell it, or give it away, or trade it, or whatever you do. So to keep it within order.
Right, because otherwise, like, the house gets taken over, and I live in a 1,200 square foot condo, so there's not a lot of room.
Right, and we talked about, you've heard a lot on our channel, you heard our mom talking about it, keeping your priorities right. Like she said, she doesn't understand what we collect, but we don't understand what she collects, but she knows it's the same thing.
Yeah.
The cows or the china or the hunting in the antique store, it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
But like we've talked about, because a lot of folks have sent comments and say, well, people judge me because I collect, or they think I'm not an adult or whatever. Everybody collects something,
Everyone has a fandom, sports fandom.
China cabinet meant you were like a responsible adult. A China cabinet's a detolf, folks. It's the same thing.
It's a detolf for dishes.
It's the same thing. But you got to make sure you're taking care of your responsibilities. You're not going in the poorhouse because you're spending too much money on figures. You're not, it doesn't look like hoarders.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say the way you display it actually makes a big difference, because I hosted a retreat for my team from work at my house, actually, because
pure work people.
Yeah. We're always short of conference room space, frankly.
Right.
So I've actually had a couple different retreats.
Boss and everything, right?
One with the team that I supervise, and one with actually the leadership team of like me, the other team leads, and my boss. And everyone loved the house. They thought it looked great because it's all
properly displayed and
curated, and it doesn't just take over the house. It's very much what I usually get is, wow, this house is really you. Yeah, it really feels like you. But I don't get,
whereas if it had been, whether in boxes or loose, but I'm going to say in boxes because it's easier to paint that picture. All in boxes, all in a bunch of Amazon boxes packed up against the wall. Somebody would have had something to say. They may not have said it to your face.
They would have been like, oh,
well, what is this person doing? And it doesn't mean, you can display an inbox collection correctly, or if you don't have room for stuff, just store it properly.
Yeah, you can store it properly.
It doesn't need to be on the sofa.
Right. And before I got it all done, there was a lot where it was just stacked up everywhere, and it looked bad, and I couldn't enjoy it, was the other thing.
That's the thing. You enjoy your collection so much more. Since I've done the redesign in my room, which you've seen in my house, I've changed my collection like 3 or 4 times. Just in this house.
Sometimes it's just fun to play with them.
I enjoy it so much more now because I can go, I want to take a picture of that. I can just go get it and take a picture. And
you don't have to dig it out.
I don't have to find it.
5 things fall on top of you. Yeah, so it's collections. So Marvel Legends is another line that I collect, but like I said, I collect just selected ones of them because I've got a little bit of space kind of above my computer where I have the Legends. I'm actually working on, I want to do a Spider-Verse kind of montage off of my ceiling.
That movie's so good.
Figuring out how to do the webbing, like with fishing line. I've been playing around with it. So I have some ideas. I have to make sure that I can get it to stay and that it won't pull out of the ceiling, because then that would be not fun. But I've got some ideas for doing I have actually used some of those multi-jointed clear stands and mounted them vertically on the sides of shelves.
Yeah, she's taken like Obitsu stands, or even like a Mafex stand or Figma stand, something like that, and she's mounted them to the side of shelves so that the arm, the same kind of effect when Mezco gives you the magnetic stand, but she's mounted them like that to give them like flying through the air.
So I've got, I think I have a Wasp doing that, and like a Falcon maybe.
Yeah.
That I need to get some more of those stands, because those I think have been I used control adhesive to actually affix it to the side, and it's actually held up really well because they're not that heavy.
Yep.
And then I have Hot Toys. And
you've got a detail for Hot Toys.
Some of the other 1/6 figures, like I've got the original Star Trek ones that were by
Quantum Mechanics, I think. Yeah. There's some new ones out of those, a Picard.
Yeah, so I have the Kirk and Spock. Kirk and Spock are another of my 2 kind of major characters that I have a lot of variations of. So I have the Barbies of Kirk, Spock, and Uhura.
The Mezco, I think, is some of those.
I've got the Mezco. Yeah, I've got a couple different Mezco Spocks. I think I got a Mezco Kirk for Christmas.
You may. Yeah, I think you got one.
Sometimes I forget what's on my wish list versus what's in my cabinet. Because you look at it enough, you're like, do I have that? Or have I just thought about buying it?
Right.
And I actually have a bunch of the Star Wars, what are the new ones? The Force Unleashed, maybe?
Oh, the larger ones that have kind of like effects a little bit.
Yeah, they're kind of like, they're meant for kids, but they look really good.
Yes. The ones that were at Toys R Us that were on the clearance, and I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's that line that they did.
The one that has like Leia with the Ewok.
Yeah, it's got all of the female Star Wars characters focused, and they're really good looking.
Yep.
So I have those: the Rey, the Leia, I think the Sabine.
Sabine, yeah.
And I have now my Star Wars. I have the Rey with BB-8. I have the General Leia, which was the last one that was brought out when Carrie Fisher died. So that one I got kind of as a tribute to her.
Yep.
I also actually have the sideshow Leia that's disguised as the bounty hunter from Empire.
Yep.
That I've had for a long time.
Yep.
I won that in a raffle at Dragon Con like 8 years ago, 10 years ago. So I have those kind of together. I have one detail where I put my Hot Toys, where I have all the Hawkeyes that have come out, and that's the only one that I have multiples of. Well, no, I lied, because I have 2 Wonder Womans. I got the comic concept Wonder Woman as well as the Justice League one, I think, or the Batman versus Superman one. And then a lot of the things I get, I do have some like mini mates and minifigs of characters that I like.
Yep.
I've got some Play Arts Kai, I've got some Mafex, I've got some of the figure arts, and I do collect, I love Iron Man.
The figure arts Hall of Armor. Right?
Yeah, so I wanted the Hall of Armor, but I knew I could neither afford nor have room to display the 1/6 scale
Did you
ones.
see that they just put the Hot Toys Hall of Armor back up, and I've ordered all 7.
Oh, I'm gonna have to come visit them at your house and admire them.
They're gonna need their own display.
Yeah, I decided that I would get one Iron Man hot toy, and so I got the gantry.
It's so good.
Which is beautiful.
She had it before me. I saw hers, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to find this.
It's so good. It's so good. I pre-ordered that one because I knew I was only gonna do one, and it was the die-cast gantry.
It's a premiere piece.
It's really great. That, like, I have not at all regret that I opened it and I was like, this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
All the little pieces on the gantry, the way you compose them, and all the different things, is so
great.
Good. So that's the one hot toy Iron Man. Although I do have the mechanic from Iron Man 3, the Tony Stark figure.
Yeah.
One thing that I do want to get is the Pepper Potts with the armor. So
yeah, then they've got on Big Bad right now, store credit, but it's expensive.
I know. I look at it and I'm like, ooh, but no.
Yeah, and the thing about that one is, well, we don't want to spoil anything, but there is a chance that after the next movie that set could become more expensive if a certain happenings happen, which is that's the hard thing about purchasing Hot Toys.
I know.
Sometimes.
You're like, will this shoot up like the Doctor Strange stuff?
Hot Toys don't lose their value typically, but sometimes they can go crazy.
Yeah.
Like the Iron Man Mark 47, the Spider-Man one is like almost $1,000.
Wow,
it's crazy.
I do have pre-ordered Shuri. The two that I have pre-ordered that haven't come yet are Shuri, who I'm super excited about because I love her so much, and the Captain Marvel with the cat. I pre-ordered her as soon as she hit. She looks great.
She looks great.
I really, 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 really wanted the Valkyrie that they showed.
They've never put it up yet.
It's never been available.
Yeah, I'm hopeful maybe with Endgame, because I think she'll be in it, that maybe we'll finally get it to come out.
So if we get a Valkyrie, I will order the Valkyrie.
I'm not giving up. I mean, they just put up a Gamora 2 months ago from Guardians 2.
Yeah, they take a while sometimes.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily them. Like, we don't know what's happening. It could be the likeness, the actor not giving a permission. You know, well, I know that's what happened with the Drax. Like, the actor wouldn't give permission.
You'll see the Toy Fair stuff and be like pending talent permission.
Correct, and that's not necessarily easy, because it's not. I don't think it's just, oh yeah, that looks like me, go for it. It's probably no, I want 40% or I want 30%. There's all that
negotiation, all that kind of stuff. So the other things that I collect are actually kind of like, I have some plushies that I got at Dragon Con that somebody made. Like, sometimes I'll get things that people have made, that are kind of one at a kind.
You're on Etsy a lot and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I do like Etsy things. So I have some fun little plushies of Strike Team Delta, the Hawkeye, Black Widow, Coulson kind of trilogy. I actually have Build-A-Bears that I've done of them. I need to finish Natasha's costume because I have like a little black bodysuit, but I need to make her bracelets and belt and stuff.
Yep.
And I also have some, I do some comic covers too. My favorite one I got from you as a present was the first appearance of Hawkeye.
Yeah, you have
that's my treasure. It was so funny when I opened
Christmas a couple years ago.
I literally like squealed out loud, and everybody else in the family was like, "What on earth is that?"
That's right.
What are you holding? This weird looking thing? I'm like, you don't understand. It's so great. But I've been very fortunate in that both Kelly Sue DeConnick and Matt Fraction have been at Dragon Con, and I've been able to get some of my favorite issues of their books signed, which was super great. I cried all over Kelly Sue the first time I met her. She was
Hawkeye run. The Hawkeye run's a very good run.
That is the thing that really got me into comics, was the Fraction Hawkeye run, because it's so good.
Yep.
It's just so good. So I've got some of those, and some things that are like, Scotty Young is an illustrator I really like.
I'd imagine most people know Scotty Young. He's the one that makes kind of the kind of child animated stuff. I don't even know.
He does these little like
I want to say chibi, but I don't really feel like it's chibi, but they're like
kids.
They're kids.
They're little kid versions of the Avengers, and he did like A-Babies versus
I have a bunch of graded Scotty Young stuff around my house you've seen.
They're just really fun. They're really lighthearted.
And Gentle Giant makes Scotty Young sculpted sketches, which Diamond just bought assets from Gentle Giant, and apparently it was because they needed the their infrastructure, like the 3D printers and stuff.
So I really do like those little statues that are based on the Scotty Young toddler versions of the Avengers. I think I've got the Vision, the Iron Man, and the Cap.
Yeah.
I have a couple different ones of them. They're all very cute. And I do have some of the Marvel Gallery, the PVC statues.
Yep.
Those are actually very, very
like
nice
40-50 bucks
for the price point. Like, I'm always really impressed by the quality of those.
Yep.
They're usually pretty sturdy and look good for the price. And so that's another one where I'll take, you know, my favorites, usually mostly the ladies. I've got Riri, I've got Ironheart, I've got Captain Marvel, I have Jubilee, I have Black Widow, you know, just an assortment of them. Those are mostly kind of the lines that I do, and the major characters. Even though I'm really into Marvel comics, and I'm really into Star Wars, I'm really into Star Trek. Yes, you can like them both, and I do. By the way, the second season of Discovery is really good. I'm enjoying it a lot. The first season tried to be too grimdark, and the second season seems to have remembered that it's a Star Trek. And so it feels like Star Trek, and it's great. I'm really liking it. But the thing probably, if I only could have one thing, it would probably be Mass Effect. I think of all of us, I'm actually probably the biggest gamer. And Mass Effect is my all-time favorite game. And I count the trilogy as one game, basically, because it's all one story. And that's my favorite game of all time. And I love the story, and I love the characters. I've played the whole thing through several times. I've played individual ones more than that. Like hundreds and hundreds of hours I've played that game over the years. And I just really love it. So that one, I am always on the lookout for Mass Effect stuff, because the merch, I think when I was playing it, I wasn't buying a lot of merch or not looking for it, or I didn't know where to find it, because a lot of it was, video game stuff is not usually as mainstream.
Right.
You have to kind of seek it out or know where to look for it.
Yep.
And so at the time, I just missed a lot of those things coming out. I didn't know.
Well, and like ThinkGeek didn't have a physical storefront yet when that was going on. GameStop hadn't bought them yet. I mean, GameStop wasn't selling collectibles like that yet.
So it's like, where did you find it?
Yeah,
and
you had to basically order it.
I got the Bishoju FemShep statue. I don't even know where I found out that it existed. I pre-ordered it because it immediately sold out, but all of them would tend to sell out, and by the time I knew it was a thing, they were all gone.
Right.
So I missed a lot of the merch first time around. So I've been kind of trying to keep an eye out for those. Papa Bobby found me a couple of the action figures,
swap meet,
which was great. And I have a couple of the play arts.
Some of those, I don't know, that line of Mass Effect action figures.
Dark Horse, maybe?
If you have any of those, I think they're normal 6-7 inch, like 1/12. Message me about that too if you have any, because you just have only have a few, right? You're missing quite a few.
And the Legion, but I don't have any of the other ones.
Yeah, if you have any of those, we can work something out.
I mean, of course, Garrus and Tally are the faves, and the Krogan, but I have Morden and Legion already. Those are the two I found. But yeah, so
I would say, you know, you can see Kim as a full-on nerd, whatever you want to call it. But Kim also, you've seen, she made a quilt for me. She's crafts. I guess if you want to talk about the traditional female thing, she's a very good cook. She can do crafts and all this thing. And I say all that to say, like the very first thing she said was she go into comics when she didn't feel like it was for her, right? Because of the way things were pictured and the way people behaved or whatever. And a lot of people are out there going, how can I find, can I find a significant other that would support my hobby or would do it with me? That's like the dream, right? Somebody to do it with you. Yeah, but you got to start at a place of respect and treating people equal. And like Victoria talked about, if you're going to have a significant other in your life and you're a collector, make sure you have room for their stuff.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily mean their collection. It also means them, what their interests are, what they want to do, their clothes, like, you know, whatever. But it also could mean their collection.
I mean, my husband and I met at Dragon Con.
Right. So, you know, and they've been, what, 10 years? 10 years?
12 years.
12 years now? Over 10 years? Met literally at Dragon Con. And but it all starts with respecting, being positive to each other. You know, there's plenty of things to get upset about in the world, but you don't have to have those in your relationships and in your life. Like, you know, you make choices what to bring in your life. And so behave appropriately, act appropriately. And there's people out there that are just as passionate about this stuff as you. This is not a gender-specific hobby.
No, not at all.
By no stretch of the imagination. One gender may have pushed another one out because of their behaviors. But that doesn't mean you have to act that way.
There's a lot more women who are really into this kind of thing than you would think from looking online. And part of that is because I don't do a lot of stuff online because I've seen too many women
it's the toxicity.
Doxed or like abused in various ways. And I'm like, I don't have time to deal with that in my life. So it keeps me from sharing a lot of this stuff, which is sad.
So that's, you know, that's your lesson from this one, is to be positive and you know, treat the people like you would your sisters or your mother or your daughters or whatever you would have. And I think that's a fairly good rule of thumb, right? Like, if you wouldn't want your mother to have to encounter the situation, then it's probably the right way to act. I would think for most people, that's a decent rule. So before we go, this is a long daily though, 30 minutes. We got to go eat lunch, and I got to go back to work. But you have to give them a squeeze it before we leave. That's the way we end the video.
Squeeze it.
Squeeze it.